And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Monastery, the open bar of the internet, the world's greatest shit show, and the place where we, the good brothers and sisters of this most holy of temples, seek enlightenment through the drunkest, craziest, and most batshit ways possible. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have a returning good brother into the temple, the man behind Black Oath Entertainment, the man who may have punched his return interview before we even started this one. A long time member and supporter of this monastery, and one who seems to be one of the biggest cheerleaders of the goals of the monastery. Previously here for Riftbreakers 2nd edition, and now back with Choir of Flesh, the one and only Alex T.
Hey Mildra, thanks for having me once again.
Yeah.
I spent here at least 1-2 hours each few months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I seem to have a short roster of people who are always here every few months.
Well, I think we have our interests aligned, so makes sense.
Our interests aligned. I was a bit of a smartass on Twitter the other day with the whole the horror of doing video games and tabletop.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, was me being a smartass, but being a smartass is my natural
completely
language.
Completely accurate. So.
Well, as a wise man once said, truth is the greatest comedy. So
yeah, definitely.
When it comes to Choir of Flesh, how did the idea for this come about? This idea of doing a medieval apocalypse.
Well, it started off by me thinking a little bit about the games I've written so far and how most people know me for playing early dark fantasy games. And I realized that most of my games are pretty dark, but I didn't have something what people call grim dark, a little bit more even more hopeless and and I really wanted to write, so I started just thinking, brainstorming a little bit, and of course, given my Catholic upbringing and hardcore religious background, it's an easy thing to draw upon. And well, all the idea of the choir and the rapture, all the angels coming to Earth to supposedly save humanity is something I had present for almost all my childhood due to my Opus Dei grandmother, and going to religious school and all this stuff. The nuns weren't very kind, to say the least. So
were you left-handed or right-handed going in?
That's a very smart question. Actually, I managed to resist. I'm still left-handed, but my father had obviously the same kind of upbringing. He was left-handed, and he's no longer left-handed. They forced him.
Yeah.
So yes, they tried, but I really resisted. I was incapable of doing anything with the right hand.
Yeah. I know that if I ended up going to like a Catholic school in my younger days, I wouldn't have lasted because of how much of a troll I am and was and still am. Like even in college,
I used to be punished a lot.
I certainly did, but I'd find ways to exploit loopholes. Like I got Saturday detention one day, and I was told I had to attend Saturday detention. But they didn't say I had to stay there the whole time, so I showed up, sat down, and left. When they got mad, they said, "You told me I had to attend it. You didn't say I had to stay."
Yeah, you have to get creative.
That or we were banned.
We
were banned from playing cards, so I brought in a copy of Yahtzee. But yeah,
yes. So you know what it is to deal with a bit strict rules and all that. So all that religious frustration from my childhood, like I said, it's always an inspiration. It inspired me in great part to write Sacrifice as well. And then I just decided that one apocalypse wasn't enough, so I decided to get a little bit more creative, especially because I had recently been reading the couple of last releases that Penny Melgarejo, which is the artist I work with Choir of Flesh. He's also a writer, and he releases very dark, very interesting material. He's quite prolific. Everything in Spanish, unfortunately. I hope someday somebody translates it because it's really, really good stuff. So I had just been reading his stuff, and I said, okay, I need some body horror also, and I want to work with this guy. So I just combined both things, and there we go. That's how we got Choir of Flesh.
Yeah, I can certainly get that, and it's. I will note when I was going through it, especially with this 1-2 punch of a dual apocalypse. There were a couple games that I was thinking of that showed up in the back of my mind, and some of these might be unorthodox picks, but one early one was the Genesis. I realize that's an odd pick given the kind of apocalypse that the Genesis is doing, and how it's more of a post-apocalypse.
Yeah.
But the other one, which for the longest time was one of my white whales in terms of games I'd like to study but didn't get the chance, was Aquilare, and I know I'm butchering the pronunciation.
Aquelarre. Yeah.
Yes. Which for the longest time was this almost infamous forbidden game until it got translated.
Yeah. Such an amazing game. I do have here a copy of the latest edition in Spanish. But I can't say it's an influence because it's one of those games that nobody wanted to play with me, so I read it when I was in the 90s when I the first edition. I never got to play it. I lost the books, and I got the latest edition, and also I still haven't played it. So it's one of those games I like to take a look at, check, because the art is really cool too. It has a lot of cool ideas. The system is fantastic, but I no, I can't say it's an influence because I didn't really ever get to play it, despite being like the Spanish game. So
Yeah, and I'm in a semi-unique position just because of the fact that I'm more international with my tabletop taste than others might be.
yeah.
But with the, I suppose I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the question of, has anyone brought up to you the blasphemous duology when you were developing this?
In what sense?
Just in terms of drawing parallels, like the blasphemous pair of video games.
You mean Oh, sorry, the Blasphemous, the video game. Okay, sorry, I thought you meant the sorry. Yeah, yes, definitely. And we were actively trying to avoid it because it's kind of unavoidable when you draw from the same hardcore Catholic sources. Well, you're going to end up with similar themes.
Yeah.
And so yes, we were actively trying to not make it like Blasphemous, but I suppose there's a common DNA there. So
my brother
I
calls
guess you'll
it,
find some things in common.
My brother calls it convergent creativity.
Yeah, that's a good term.
Because in both, but one of the big things is the fact that, as mentioned, you have a sorry, I think something got in the wrong pipe. But you have a dual apocalypse. You have the celestial choir who is turning people into abomination, and you have the older horror, the flesh that feeds.
Yeah.
And what prompted the idea of doing this idea of a double apocalypse?
Because I didn't want it to focus that much and completely on the Catholic or Christian side of things, and I like the idea of having like an opposed end of days, but from a more pre-Christian point of view. All the ideas of cosmic origin and chaos that you find in the Viking sources, Egyptian sources, Sumerian. So I mean, they all have this pre-creation chaos, which is still always lurking in the back of creation. So I thought it would be interesting to add that also into the game as well, to have like a balance and to make it even more desperate for you, the human, who are trapped in the middle of these two forces. Because if it's just the angels of descending from heaven, and I don't know, it's a little bit more standard. I think it's been done before, the classical apocalypse stuff. So I thought it would be interesting to have this second apocalypse happening at the same time, and also with a completely different visual style and more focus on body horror and another kind of change, more physical change, as opposed to the kind of change that the choir offers, which is still physical but less so. It's more spiritual and mental. So I like to have that. It's like they balance each other out, and in a way they cancel each other out. So it's I don't know. I thought it will make the game more interesting.
Yeah. Now, on the mechanic end of things, one aspect I did want to get into is the notion of a dynamic target number. And it's possible that this may have been in a previous work and I just missed this, but it is an interesting thing. I think the only game I can think of that did a that showed a scaling target number like this, not in the exact same way, is the edition I'm supposed to hate, but I don't because the check bounced. Where it had suggested DCs for different levels. And obviously, you have that with the modifiers instead of levels because you don't do levels in this. But
Yeah.
What was the inspiration to do this kind of dynamic TN?
Well, the first iteration I have of that was I did it with Ruthless Heaven's Boundless Fate, which also has scale in target numbers, but those work with levels instead of. So yeah, that's closer to fourth edition and Pathfinder and so on. But here I thought that it will more directly and more accurately reflect the character's power. So it will, in my experience, it balances and progresses much accurately with your level. And since I wanted the game to really pose a challenge, especially considering that I always write my game solo first, so I assume you're not going to, even though you can play with a game master, I'm assuming you're not. So instead of you as the player having to think, okay, I'm going to fight this enemy, is it more powerful than me? How powerful it is? Do I have to tweak its stats? All that kind of stuff goes away with this table. Everything adapts to your level. There's no work to be done. The downside is that everything scales with you. So a lot of people hate the idea of never becoming more powerful than the things you're going to be fighting, even though you are more powerful because you have easy, average, and hard enemies. So you, even if they are your same level, they can be easier to kill, or an equal challenge, or more harder than usual. But to overcome this, I added the mastery and burden modifiers, which are applied after you have calculated the target number. Because, well, I didn't mention this, but the target number is calculated based on your total bonifier. So if you have a +3, then depending on the difficulty of the check, you're going to get one number or another. If you have a +2, so all that scales with your total ability bonus. So that's how you find out the target number. But then you have on top of those, once you have the target number, if you have a mastery, which you usually get thanks to skills or feats and this kind of things, those are applied to the roll. Those work like a traditional modifier would in Dungeons and Dragons. So that's what it gives you that sense of getting better and your character having unique or distinct capabilities compared to other characters, which I think it's important to have.
Yeah. And the way I see it, that whole developing the target numbers with you is reinforcing what sort of game this is. I think I don't remember if you said this in a tweet or in something else, but I remember a remark of, "You are not the hero, you are a survivor."
Yeah.
And the sense that you're just trying to survive in a world that has gone multiple levels of completely mad. In fact, if I was to send a study material for someone running this, I'd probably, even if it's not in the same timeline, I'd probably send them the film Mad God, if you've seen that project that took a decade to make.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Yeah, that's a cool side. Yeah, I didn't realize, but yeah, that's a cool reference.
And obviously, the tech level isn't the same, but it has that same feel of absolute unending madness.
Yeah.
And I just feel that more people should see that, just to appreciate the insane amount of work for that much detail in stop motion.
Yes, it's really incredible.
Mhm.
How the amount of patience you have to do something like that, and dedication, and
Like I've seen I've seen like stories about the stop motion work that Harryhausen was doing, but that was usually with like one or two models. You're doing a lot more than that in that movie.
yeah.
And I think one of the other cases of that sort of reinforcement. Actually, I have to correct myself. It wasn't 10 years to make that. It took 30 years.
Yeah, that's insane.
Mm-hmm. And when it and to further reinforce, you have always had a unorthodox approach when it comes to spellcasting or its equivalent in some of the games, and that's more or less the case here with the idea with how prayers work in Choir of Flesh, where it's instead of being about a resource, it's about the price you'd have to pay for it.
Yeah, so I thought it will when I approached the idea of supernatural and magic and all that, I did it from the point of view of the setting and what will fit. So it really didn't fit to have guys flinging fireballs, and I don't know. It didn't go with the setting, especially considering the fact that it's supposed to be in France and in the year 1003.
Mm-hmm.
So no, it just didn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So considering the fact that heaven has basically descended upon earth, and the angels are there,
Mm-hmm.
and that you feel the presence of God or whatever is calling itself God on earth, well, prayers do work, and that's how magic works in this game. You utter a prayer and it just works. There's no check. There's no nothing. It just works. The problem is that there's always a price to pay. So the more powerful the prayer you send towards the heavens, usually the higher price you're going to have to pay. You have the choir's table where you the choir's price table, sorry, where you have to roll each time you try one of these prayers. All the prayers are classified in different degrees of potency.
Mm-hmm.
And the more powerful a prayer is, the bigger modifier you will have to add to that roll on the choir's price table. So it starts with very small things, like maybe you just get stunned, or I don't know, maybe you get confused, you lose a little bit of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
But the things get uglier and uglier and uglier until it's a D100 table.
Mm-hmm.
And the last result is that you just you lose yourself. You become part of the choir, basically. And the most powerful prayers, the apocalyptic anthems, which are the ones that allow you to resurrect people and destroy whole areas. Those you have a base plus 50 to your roll. So if you roll a 50 or higher, you lose your character. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to be very careful when you use the prayers. Then you have also the minor prayers, which is just like a small thought that allows you to make a single reroll. And that the price for that is very simple. You just accumulate a little bit of anguish, which is one of the game's stats, is like the stress and existential anguish that you accumulate, mental trauma and all that. So it adds a little bit of anguish to your character, but you get to reroll. And then that's on the side of the choir. Then the flesh offers different kinds of temptations, because while you are exploring the world, you'll find these seeds of flesh which you can consume, and they give you what is basically a mutation. They're called blessings of the flesh. So your body will change. Maybe you will grow claws, a new arm, scales to protect yourself. But there's always a downside. There's a table of positive effects, all stuff that will benefit you, still it will change you. You will lose humanity. People will slowly not want to have you around.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you have the second table, which is all negative stuff that, I don't know, maybe you start smelling like rotten flesh, or you lose your eyes, or your mouth moves to a different part of your body. So I mean, there's a little bit of, so those are quite risky, and you should only use the seeds of flesh if you're open to the idea of your character changing quite a lot physically. But I think there are two magic systems that fit very well with the setting, and it's exactly the kind of thing I wanted this game to have.
Oh yeah, and it definitely reinforces the fact that, as I said before, you're a survivor, not a hero, and you are just one small grain of sand below you a maelstrom, and above you a hurricane.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're just one tiny little, not even a boat, a dinghy. The studio apartment of both.
Yeah.
I suppose another parallel I could make is the hurricane part of the story with the book The K, which everybody my age had to read when they were in grade school. And a K is a very, very tiny island. It is the size of an apartment. And a little ways into that story, a hurricane passes through, and they have to hold for dear life onto one tree. It's the only thing that's going to keep them from getting swept up.
That's a good analogy, yeah, for sure.
Like, you're not gonna be able to fight a hurricane, obviously. All you can do is just grab onto something solid and pray you don't get hit.
Yeah.
Although in this case, praying might not be the best idea because things are listening. But it's funny that you mentioned that you build your game for solo first, and I'm guessing that's part of why in a lot of the games I've seen, and including this one, you include a combat grid instead of the assumption that people are going to have their own grid map, since combat grids is something I see with some solo games.
Well, the idea of having the combat grid was also to limit the space, because if I just say you use a combat grid, or I don't know, maybe you end up taking a whole letter-sized grid, and I wanted combat to be very tight, so it's just a 5x5 grid. You don't have any real room to maneuver, and combat starts immediately from the first round, so it makes combat quite intense and pretty fast, combined with the fact that there's no HP. It's all it uses an injury system. Even when you fail, you usually cause some sort of damage if you fail with your attack check, I mean. So yes, combat is quite snappy and tactical, and the little grid, I don't know, I think that's a layer of, I don't always add tactical combat to my games, but I thought it was a good fit for this one, to make it another layer of decision making, and to make it a little bit more interesting. I think it works pretty well.
Since it's 5x5, you could easily do a random event on random squares just by rolling 2d10.
Yeah. Yes.
I know it'd be tempting to use like a d6 for this, but that's one more square. That's one more square.
Yeah.
But I find that decision interesting, since obviously with my own work I've had some pressure to do grid combat, which I've said you can house rule it if you want, but I'm not helping you. But something that I think a lot of people don't take into account is the fact that grid combat in the traditional sense has had a paradigm shift over the last 50 years. Going from these very confined, tight spacings to more open set piece-like designs, but still having mechanics built around those tight formations, which leads to some mechanics just not getting enough attention. I think of it as the difference between the way people line up and say football, proper football. I may be an American, but I'm not going to call it that. And rugby. Rugby is very tight. Football is very open, and you have a much larger field to work with. So it's, even though both of them are using a field, they're not using it the same way. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that should be taken into account when it comes to the idea of using a grid. It's not just the grid, it's also the movement, how much movement you're giving both the player and the GM side of things.
Yes, I completely agree, and that's what I thought. That it's actually a bit frustrating in some games when you get this gigantic grid, or they just don't define it, and you spend the first 2-3 rounds just moving the characters to actually get into combat range, and I don't know. I think it's unnecessary and a waste of time, especially when you're playing solo. It's like, why am I doing this? So with 5x5, you're right there in the middle of the action, and of course all the rules are built specifically for combat in 5x5 space, and it works very well so far. All the playtesting, it's been working perfectly.
You're not trying to be an offshoot of a war game. So why should we put in war game mechanics?
Exactly. That's a problem I see quite often, that people use wargame philosophy when it comes to combat encounters, but not, trying to implement it in an RPG way. It's just it doesn't always work. You need to adapt it.
Yeah, and I know some people have that live rent-free in their heads, saying, well, if I do that, I'm gonna come off like a board game. To which I say, so?
Yeah. Exactly. What's the problem with that?
It's not like we haven't had games plenty of times that have crossed over, or people use the rules for a board game to do an RPG. Hi, Gloomhaven, how you doing?
Yeah.
Or we have a whole subcategory of board games these days that are built around scenario play. What else is built around scenario play? RPGs.
Yeah, definitely. Board games are definitely encroaching in RPG territory, so I think it's fair that RPGs encroach into board game territory. It just makes sense. They are both the same.
I said a similar thing when it came
basically.
to the video game Claptrap. That this idea of having this Great Wall of China between tabletop games and video games isn't really going to fly, because you're now having whole generations who got started with, like I did, with both around the same time.
Yeah.
Like I had an old Apple II around the same time I started getting into D&D. Then eventually graduating to an NES, and there's also the fact that a lot of designers are not just playing one kind of game.
I would say no one. Who the hell just plays one kind of? Well, I don't know. I guess somebody does, but
they're the weirdos who are kept way in the back, or up in their ivory tower. Which I always remind people that being in an ivory tower does not protect you from well-placed Trimensional 2-team, also known as TNT. remember the solution is P equals plenty. And a wall is a door with a different kind of key. But getting back to sanity. I realize I've asked this with several previous projects, but would it be feasible for someone to do a hex crawl of sort? And you kind of have this answered with the incursion grid.
Well, actually, somebody asked me precisely that. Somebody who has played this in the game, and instead of the incursion, I mean the first phase of exploration and the core element of exploration, the endless travail, which works as a point crawl. So I suppose you can turn a point crawl into a hex crawl. It's a different way of representing basically the same things. So yes, if somebody wants to ignore the fact that it's written as a point crawl and you decide, no, I'm going to do this as a hex crawl, you can do it. I can't think of any problem you will have. But then the incursion itself, I suppose you could also turn it into a hex scroll, but you will have to be firm when it comes to the number of hexes you're going to be exploring, because that's crucial for the incursion itself, because it's limited to that grid of eight squares, which is where you can place all 9 technically, because you have the entrance starting point. So I suppose if you want to represent these different squares in the grid I provide with the game with hexes instead of rectangles, you can do it. But mechanically, you're not going to. I don't know. It will just be a visual representation. The mechanics, you have to stick to what I'm doing, and it wouldn't feel like a hex scroll. I think it's a little bit different, but I don't know. Yeah, I suppose it's your game. You do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's going to be a case of, I think you could do it, but you are going to have to put in the work.
Yeah, there are some things you're going to have to change.
Which is a natural move. Now, with that in mind, obviously because of the way it's set up, this is a more general type of character creation, since much like with some of your previous work, you're not really doing classes. The class is essentially being a survivor.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine that's still going to be the case. It's still using a more non-linear approach to advancement, a XP as currency approach.
Yeah, it's basically, you don't have classes. You do have levels this time around. I decided to add levels because I'm using the core rules are the same ones that I wrote for my previous game, Machine Gods of the Noxian Expanse. So anybody who has played that game, it's still a D20 system. So yes, you have levels, even though there's no max level. You can progress infinitely. But like you said, XP, it does still kind of work like a currency, because once you need XP certain thresholds you need to reach certain thresholds of XP to progress to reach the next level. But once you do reach a new level, you gain development points, which you then spend on your character however you want. You increase your HP. Well, not HP in this game because there's no HP, but you can increase a couple of the different stats you have aside from your core attributes of strength. The 6 we all know.
Mm-hmm.
I changed the name of a couple. Instead of instead of wisdom you have willpower, instead of charisma you have presence, but they work basically the same as in D&D. And with, with those development points, you also get to buy skills and feats. So yes, I don't really like class-based systems. Well, unless they are flexible and they allow to, if they work as a starting point, you can like mix and match like you did with your own game, combining one class of or archetype, whatever you want to call it, with different ones. That kind of thing I do enjoy, but the way D&D does it, which is much more rigid, even though you have multi-classing, I don't know.
Multi-classing was an afterthought. And
yeah, it clearly is.
That kind of direct class approach I look at as another artifact of wargaming, where because you're managing whole armies, you needed individual units to be very specific in what they're doing. But an adventuring party is not an army.
Yeah, I think it's good to have some kind of flexibility, and I always like to have options and to give options when it comes to character building. So I think it's one of the things that make RPGs fun, which is developing your character how you want it, and if you don't have a rigid structure that you must follow when you're creating your character, I think it's fun. It makes it more yours, more unique.
Oh yeah. And now, with that in mind, I do want to congratulate you on how well the Kickstarter is doing so far. You're asking for 4,000 euros, and it's currently at 14.3 with just a couple of days to go.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy.
But what are you shooting for as far as a release window?
Well, the game is completely done, so. I mean, the art is done, the writing is done. Well, the only thing I need to finalize are the different stretch goals, but those ones are going to be released on their own on a separate zine. So the core book, nothing is going to delay it. It's 100% done. Today I uploaded the drive-through for my internal testing and my Patreon members and all that. I uploaded the last version, the release version. So it has all the aids, all the finalized index, all the art, all the editing, playtesting, refinement, everything is there. It plays perfectly. There's a lot of people who have been playing it for weeks now, months even. So the second I get the Kickstarter funds, which will be 2 weeks from when the campaign ends, and in about 40 hours from now. So the second I get the Kickstarter funds, I'll send it to all the backers. I will send the at-cost POD codes, the print-on-demand codes as well, and I will release it. So yeah, you can expect it, at least for people who back the Kickstarter, they are going to have it October guaranteed. But for the general public, I'm considering pushing it to November, because I'm releasing next month Rift Breakers 2nd edition. It's finally done also. So it's finished. So I'm releasing it in October. And so yeah, most likely not to have 2 releases the same month. I will push Choir of Flesh general release to November. But yeah, backers are getting it next month guaranteed.
And given what goes on in November, I suppose this sort of body horror apocalypse is apropos.
Yeah.
Especially if you've seen those Seas of Humanity on Black Friday, or had to.
Yeah. I knew you were talking about that.
And I could also bring up Thanksgiving, but that's easy. But I will certainly look forward to seeing how it develops. But with that in mind, I do want to sincerely thank you once again for taking the time out of your schedule to come all the way to my monastery and enjoy the madness that happens here.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure and a lot of fun as always.
Oh, yeah. And anytime you see fit to return, the door is always open. As I often say around here, drinking is not mandatory, but it is encouraged. And, of course, a sincere thanks goes out to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come onto the show and enjoy the madness. And there will be plenty more where that came from, as there always is here, on the open bar of the internet. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.